Mother-in-law kicked me out for her daughter. A week later she demanded money, but my comeback left them speechless. Life's been a bit of a roller coaster for me, full of tough times and a few strokes of luck, like losing my parents way too early, which hit me hard and left a sting that never completely faded. But then I got a bit of fortune when the sweet old couple next door, the Parkers, took me in. They were the kindest people you'd ever meet and treated me more like their granddaughter than some charity case. We didn't have much money, but we were rich in love, and that was what really mattered. Just as I was finding my feet at 18 and thinking about college, tragedy struck again. The Parkers died in a car crash, and suddenly, I was alone once more. They left me a little money for school in their cozy house in the suburbs, full of memories and ghosts. It was too much for me, so I sold it and moved to a small apartment in the city, right near the college where I'd signed up to study financial management. It felt good to have a plan and move forward with my life. The classes were tough but really interesting, and I dove into learning about numbers and markets. After college, I landed a decent job. My days were packed with work, and I was doing okay, but the nights were lonely, weird for a city so bustling. That's when I met Tom at a party a friend threw. He was loud, funny, and didn't care who knew it. We clicked the moment he accidentally spilled my drink. "Hey, watch it." I barked, more surprised than upset. He just grinned and said, "My bad, let me make it up to you." "What were you drinking?" I tried not to smile too much and said, "Just beer." He shouted over the music, "2 beers coming right up." That was Tom for you, no fuss, just straightforward. We spent the whole night chatting about everything and nothing, discovering we both loved old movies and hated sushi. It felt so easy with him, and by the end of the night, I didn't want to say goodbye. Fast forward a year, and he proposed, no flashy gestures, just us on the couch with him pulling out a ring as we watched TV. "Marry me?" he asked, gripping the ring so hard I thought it might break. I laughed, not because it was funny but because it was so us, perfectly imperfect. "Yes, of course, you big goof," I said. Getting married didn't change things much at first. We were still us, just with papers to prove it, and it felt right. We settled into my little city apartment, staying close to the hustle, but now with someone to share the quiet moments. For the first time in ages, the evenings didn't feel so empty. Life was comfortable settling into the married groove, but of course, life loves its curveballs. Tom's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, were absolute gems. They lived in a cozy suburban home and welcomed me with open arms right from the start. I could see where Tom got his easygoing vibe. Their warmth was a balm on my sore heart, still aching from my family's loss. "So happy you're part of our family now," Mrs. Dawson would say, squeezing my hand with overwhelming kindness. "Thanks, I really appreciate how welcoming you've been," I'd say, feeling genuinely grateful. Visiting them became our weekend ritual, filled with BBQs and long chats over coffee. Life was good, simple and honest, until it wasn't. Tom got called away for a year-long business trip, a great career chance for him but rough timing for us. Just after he left, Mr. and Mrs. Dawson's health took a nosedive, fast. Poor Mrs. Dawson was beside herself with worry when she called me. "Grace, I hate to ask, but I really need help around here. Mr. Dawson isn't doing well," she said, her voice shaky. Without thinking twice, I packed a bag and headed to the suburbs. Seeing them so frail was a shock. Mr. Dawson, once so strong and steady, now seemed shrunken, connected to life by a web of medical tubes. I slipped into the household routine seamlessly, handling chores so Mrs. Dawson could focus on her husband. In the evenings, I'd read aloud to Mr. Dawson, his favorite classics, though he often drifted off before I finished. "Thank you, Grace," he'd whisper on good days, his voice a shadow of its old self. "It's my pleasure, really," I'd reply, squeezing his hand, trying to offer comfort in small ways. One quiet afternoon, Mrs. Dawson sat at the kitchen table while I chopped veggies for dinner. She looked older than her years. "Grace, I don't know how to say this, but we're in a bit of a bind," she began, nervously twisting her hands. "Mr. Dawson was the main earner, you know." So there I was, standing there with a knife in my hand, but my attention was totally on Mrs. Dawson. "Listen, sweetheart, we're really strapped for cash right now. I hate to even bring it up, but do you think you might consider renting out your apartment? It could really help us out," she said, eyes cast down, clearly embarrassed. Without missing a beat, I told her, "Absolutely, Mrs. Dawson, I'm on it." I hoped my certainty would lighten her load a bit. We got the apartment rented out pretty fast, and every month, like clockwork, I sent all the rental income to Mrs. Dawson, along with extra for groceries and any bills they needed covering. It wasn't easy though. My commute to work in the city turned into a nightmare. But hey, family sticks together, right? That's what I kept reminding myself, even on those days that felt like climbing a mountain. Mrs. Dawson often said, "You're such a godsend, Grace," and I could hear the relief in her voice every time I handed her the money. "It's just what family does," I'd say back, even though some nights, lying there in the guest room, listening to the city sirens in the distance, it was like the weight of the whole world was sitting on my shoulders. Harry's calls were my saving grace, connecting me back to another world. "How are things going, Kim? You holding up all right?" He'd ask, genuine concern clear even through the crackly phone line. "Oh, we're managing, don't worry about us," I'd say, injecting my voice with as much cheer as I could muster. The last thing I wanted was to add to his worries. Then life at the Dawson house took a sharp turn when Emily, Mrs. Dawson's daughter from her first marriage, showed up out of nowhere. The whole vibe changed instantly. She had this way about her, like a chill breeze sneaking in under the door. I didn't know her well, but I'd heard enough from Harry and seen the icy tension during her short visits with Mr. and Mrs. Dawson. My days were already stretched thin with the long commute and caring for Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, who was now bedridden and fading fast. But Emily's arrival was like throwing more chaos into the mix. She settled in as if she owned the place. One night, after a rough day, Mr. Dawson motioned me over. His voice was barely a whisper, but his words were urgent. "Grace, you need to keep an eye on Emily. She's trouble." The seriousness in his voice twisted my gut with anxiety. "I got it, Mr. Dawson. I'll be careful," I promised, even though I wasn't sure exactly what I was up against. Turns out, Mr. Dawson was spot on. Emily wasted no time taking over. The first sign was when I found her in the kitchen one morning. She was there, sipping her coffee like she owned the joint. "Just to be clear, I'm not here to play housemaid or chef for anyone," she snapped at me, practically daring me to say something. I just took a deep breath and replied, "Okay, Emily. I've got things under control. I can keep at it." I was trying to keep the peace. "Good, because I don't plan on lifting a finger. This is Mom's house, after all," she shot back, eyes daring me to challenge her. From that point on, Emily made sure we all felt her presence, and not in a good way. She'd order takeout just for her mom and herself, leaving a mess of empty boxes for me to clean up. Her disdain was obvious, but I swallowed my pride because Mr. and Mrs. Dawson needed some semblance of peace. One evening, Mrs. Dawson, in a rare moment of her old warmth, asked, "Grace, why don't you join us for dinner tonight?" But before I could respond, Emily cut in with fake concern, "Mom, Grace has been busy all day. She probably needs some time to herself." The message was clear, I wasn't welcome. As the days dragged on, my chores doubled because of Emily's freeloading ways. I'd hear her at night, whispering to her mother, poisoning her mind against me. Mrs. Dawson, who used to be so kind and understanding, started changing. Her looks grew colder, her thank yous almost disappeared. A couple of weeks later, Mr. Dawson passed away. The funeral was quiet, and Harry managed to fly in just in time to say his goodbyes. It was the first time in months we were together, and having him there was such a relief. But amid the sad atmosphere, I noticed a big shift at the Dawson place. Emily was on her best behavior, acting all polite for everyone. "How's everything been while I've been gone?" Harry asked me quietly during a rare moment we had alone after the service. "Everything's fine, just fine," I lied, forcing a smile. I didn't want to add to his grief. "Are you sure? You seem a bit worn out," he pressed, concern lining his brow. "Just been keeping busy, helping out around here," I assured him, avoiding eye contact. It wasn't the time to dive into the mess brewing under the surface. As soon as Harry left, Emily dropped her nice act, and the whole dynamic shifted again. So, everything changed around the house, and not in a good way. Mrs. Dawson, who was always warm and kind, went all cold and distant, probably because she was grieving. Instead of having normal chats, she just started barking orders at me. I felt less like family and more like an unwanted guest. Then there was Emily. She decided to take over the house, acting like it was her kingdom or something. She couldn't care less about anyone else's feelings. She'd storm into my room without even knocking and rummage through my stuff like she was on a treasure hunt. One day, I was out in the garden, just trying to catch a break, when I spotted a box hidden among the bushes. Curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it up. To my shock, it was full of my stuff, my watches, jewelry, and even some of my underwear. My heart dropped. Even worse, some of my dresses were just tossed over a bush nearby. I was furious. I gathered my things, clutching the box, and stormed inside, where I found Emily lounging in the living room like she owned the place. "What the hell, Emily?" I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady, even though I was shaking with rage. You can't just throw my stuff out like this. She just laughed, a cold, harsh sound that echoed in the room. Please, you live here? She mocked. You're just a guest, and not even a welcome one. You should be out there in the garden or better yet, on the street. You're nothing but a pitiful beggar. Her words hit me hard, like salt being rubbed into a wound. I couldn't believe how spiteful she sounded. Desperate, I turned to Mrs. Dawson, who had just walked in. Mrs. Dawson, please tell her she can't treat me like this. This is supposed to be my home too. I pleaded, my voice starting to break. Mrs. Dawson, once so kind, just looked right through me as if I weren't even there. This is Emily's house now. She's right, Grace. Maybe it's time you found somewhere else to live, she said, her words hitting me like a slap. I stood there, clutching my box, feeling my heart break. The home and family I thought I had were crumbling around me. But I stayed, because I had promised Mr. Dawson on his deathbed that I would look after his wife and not let Emily bully her. Still, day by day, Mrs. Dawson seemed to become more like Emily, sharp-tongued and cold-eyed. You're just sitting around doing nothing, aren't you? Mrs. Dawson snapped one evening while I was cleaning up after dinner. Her voice dripped with disdain. I'm doing my best to keep things running smoothly, I replied, trying to hide how much her words stung. Best? Could have fooled me. Seems like you're just freeloading, she scoffed, turning her back on me. It hurt because it was so far from the truth. I wasn't freeloading, I'd even rented out my apartment and sent almost all the money to Mrs. Dawson, while handling most of the chores. Meanwhile, Emily did nothing but criticize and live off her mom's pension. Emily would taunt me every night, loud enough for it to echo through the walls. What does my brother even see in you? I'd bite my tongue, swallowing my anger and frustration, reminding myself of the promise I made. But the atmosphere was suffocating. The house felt like a minefield of hostility. Then one evening, I came home early from work and heard Emily and Mrs. Dawson having a heated chat in the living room. They hadn't noticed me come in. We need to get her to sell that apartment of hers. Can you imagine how much we could get from that? Emily said, her tone greedy. Yeah, but how do we convince her? Grace isn't stupid, she won't just hand it over, Mrs. Dawson replied, sounding frustrated and greedy too. Leave it to me, Mom. I'll sweet talk her into it. Once she signs it over, we can finally live the way we deserve, Emily promised, her words as slippery as a snake. Hearing them plotting to take away my only financial security felt like a cold slap in the face. I knew I couldn't stay anymore. My heart pounding, I quietly slipped away to my room and decided I had to leave. Fast. With trembling hands, I packed my essentials. Every moment in that house felt like ticking away on a time bomb. I left without saying goodbye, they weren't worth it. Slipping out the back door, I called for a taxi to the station. As I sat on the train to Harry's place, doubts swirled in my mind. Would Harry understand what was going on? Would he take their side? The uncertainty was crushing, but the fear of staying was worse. I stared out the window, watching the landscapes blur by, a mix of fear and determination building up inside me. When I got to Harry's place, he was surprised, maybe a bit relieved, but full of questions. His eyes widened as he opened the door, taking in my frazzled appearance. Grace, what's going on? He asked. So, I show up at Harry's place, and he immediately knows something's up. Everything all right? He asks, stepping to the side so I can come in. I hesitated, taking in the comforting vibe of his temporary digs. No, Harry, it's really not, I finally said, my voice hitching a little. He led me to the couch, looking pretty worried. Tell me what's going on, babe, he urged. I laid it all out for him, starting with Emily coming back, the chaos at home ramping up, the sketchy money stuff, and finally the push to make me sell my place. I hadn't wanted to bug him with it, not while he was busting his butt at work. But as I kept talking, Harry's face got darker. By the time I finished, his fists were clenched, and he was all tense. Why didn't you say anything sooner? He asked, sounding both angry and worried. I shrugged, feeling kind of stupid. I thought I could deal with it myself. Harry was having none of it. Grace, you shouldn't have to deal with this crap alone, he said, getting up to pace. I can't believe they're treating you like this. Then he stopped and looked at me, his eyes intense. I'm not gonna let anyone do this to my wife, he declared, grabbing his phone. My heart was pounding as he dialed up his mom. She picked up quick, and though I couldn't hear her, Harry's rigid stance said it all. Mom, this nonsense has to end. I know what's up, and I won't stand for it. If Emily doesn't get out and you don't show Grace some respect, you're on your own, no more money, nothing. His voice was firm. There was some heated back and forth, and then silence. Fine, if that's how you feel, then here's where I stand, he said, hanging up. Then he turned to me, softer now, and wrapped me in his arms. Guess it's just us now, babe, and honestly, that's all we need, he said. I melted into him, feeling fortified. Just us, I murmured. We spent the night discussing practical stuff, how I'd set up remote work, and how losing the extra financial burden of supporting them felt freeing, like we were setting the stage for a fresh start. Just the two of us. Whatever happens, we've got this, Harry said with a grin. Yep, I replied, feeling stronger. The next days were a blur. I sorted out working remotely, and Harry helped me set up a cozy little home office at his place. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours and peaceful. Then, a week into our new life, I got a call that felt like déjà vu. It was Mrs. Dawson, her tone a mix of desperation and entitlement. Grace, why didn't I get the money this month? We rely on it, she demanded, catching me off guard. After everything, you really think I'll keep sending money? I replied, more stunned than angry. Emily's voice shrieked in the background, make her transfer the money, Mom. I took a deep breath, recalling all the nasty things they'd said to me, words that cut deep. Mrs. Dawson, Emily called me a ruthless beggar. I'm done supporting people who treat me like trash. There was silence, and I could almost see her shocked face. But we're family, she finally said, her voice a mix of anger and pleading. Family doesn't treat each other like that. Goodbye, Mrs. Dawson, I said firmly, hanging up before she could reply. It was tough, but Harry was right there, giving me a reassuring hug. You did the right thing, he said. Time for them to fend for themselves. Not long after settling in, another surprise hit us. I found out I was pregnant. It brought unexpected joy, and suddenly the future seemed wide open. We decided to sell my apartment and look for a house in the suburbs, somewhere nice for our kid to grow up. Then, out of the blue, Mrs. Dawson called again, but her tone had changed. It was desperate, almost sad. Grace, I messed up. Emily made me sell the house, took the money, and left. Could I come stay with you? When I heard Harry's voice wobble like that, it threw me off balance. After everything that had happened, this felt like a real test of my strength. Mrs. Dawson, you made your choice when you backed Emily instead of us. There was another way, I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though I was a mess inside. I know, I messed up, she admitted. But you have such a big heart. Can't you forgive an old lady for making the wrong call? She pleaded. I sighed, feeling a bit sorry for her, but I couldn't forget the hurt her decisions had caused. I forgave you a long time ago, but that doesn't mean you can just waltz back into my life. We both have to deal with what we've done, I replied and hung up the phone. Then, with a firm press, I blocked her number. We got on with our lives, buying this lovely little house with a garden just perfect for the kids. One lazy Sunday morning, as I was sipping coffee and leafing through the paper, a headline jumped out at me, local woman arrested for major fraud scheme. And there she was, Emily, in cuffs, looking defeated. A mix of shock and a weird sense of satisfaction hit me all at once. Hey Harry, check this out, I called, holding up the paper. Emily got busted for fraud. Harry looked at the article with a serious face. Wow, I can't say I'm shocked, but still, it's a lot to take in. Yeah, it is. But hey, she made her choices, and now she's got to deal with them, I said, feeling a kind of closure I didn't know I needed. Eventually, we heard through friends that Mrs. Dawson was living in a tiny apartment, juggling 2 jobs because her pension just wasn't enough to cover living costs and the debt Emily left her with. Did you hear about your mom? Harry's buddy Matt asked when we were having a barbecue one night. Yep, heard all about it, Harry replied, flipping burgers with a hint of sadness in his voice. She chose her path, Matt. It's hard, but that's the way it is. Matt nodded, respecting the boundaries. You're right, man. Just thought you should know. The conversation moved on to lighter stuff like sports and work, and we realized life had moved on for us too. The true joy of our new life came when Mia was born. Becoming parents changed everything. Our priorities shifted, our dreams evolved, and somehow having Mia healed those old wounds by filling them with fresh love. Can you believe she's ours? I whispered to Harry one night as we watched our little girl sleep. She's perfect, Grace. Just perfect, Harry murmured back, his voice full of emotion. We spent our days amazed at every little thing Mia did, each smile, each giggle. She was our little miracle, and her presence made the past troubles fade away, making room for new, happier memories. Every day felt simple but was packed with moments of joy, weaving the story of our happy family life. Anyway, if you're still here, thanks for sticking around, and don't forget to subscribe for more wild stories like this one.